What is going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning into this video again. It's going to be one of the best ranking videos we've done so far on this channel. Why would it be one of the best rankings videos, Ryan? Well, that's because the MLB free agency that is, I guess, still going on, but has gone on so far, has been one for the ages. It's been one of the best MLB free agencies we've ever seen and experienced, at least for me personally in my life. Just with the money and the different teams, guys changing scenery, the drama, the intrigue, it's been unbelievable. So we're gonna rank every single player and the free agent deal basically on the team and how it's gonna serve best for just the overall deal, right? How much money they're spending on the guy, the fit, all these different categories, and we're gonna rank them A+, A-, B+, B-, C+, C-, D, F, and the last category I have listed is Y, because sometimes these moves don't really make sense. So we're going to break down all of them, but we got the top 24 most influential signings of this year's free agency class, and we're going to break them all down. So let's get into it. So as you guys can see here, like I said already, we're going to be doing the MLB free agency rankings. The top 24 alphabetically based on last name thrown into these 9 categories: A+ or A-, B+ or B-, C+ or C-, D, F, and Y, because why would they do that deal? All right, so let's just get straight into it. So the first one that comes up is Jose Abreu to the Houston Astros. Now this is a 3-year, $58.5 million deal, averaging $19 million a year. Okay, I think Jose Abreu is an excellent fit and would have been an excellent fit anywhere he goes. Okay, he's a great hitter. He's a really good defender, MVP caliber player. You know, he won it in COVID 2020, but I don't know. I mean, that year to a lot of people doesn't really hold up, but the numbers are still there and they're still real, and you still got to go up and hit. And he's been really, really consistent for most of his career in Chicago with the White Sox. That being said, he is old. I believe he is 36 years old almost. He's going to be 36 when this deal starts, and it's a 3-year deal. So you get 37, 38, 39. I'm going to have to take Jose Abreu and I'm going to put him in A-. Okay. I think it's a good deal for the Astros. It's a good deal for him. The only thing that may start coming into play here is age, but that's why it's an A-, because otherwise it's a great deal. This guy deserves the money, and he's going to contribute for an Astros team that's bound for a lot more success coming off a World Series championship. Up next is Tyler Anderson. Okay, going to the Angels, 3 years, $39 million, $13 million a year. It's not that much money, and by the way, it's a ton of money, but in the grand scheme of how much these other dudes have signed for that we're going to talk about, it's honestly not that much, especially for a guy coming off an all-star season. I don't know where he finished in Cy Young voting, but I know it was probably close to top 10. He put up a great year for the Dodgers. That being said, the Dodgers are a team that's known to take a player, and especially pitchers, and turn them from an average type pitcher, average caliber, turn them into borderline, or in Tyler Anderson's case, all-stars. The Angels don't have that magic. The Angels are known for actually typically the opposite. Besides Mike Trout and Ohtani, they pretty much take whoever they get and they just destroy their career. And the Angels don't perform very high. 13 million's not that much. Anderson's a solid pitcher. I'm going to throw Tyler Anderson to the Angels in the B+ category. He's a good pitcher. The Angels, I should say, are on their way up, and they're trying to develop and build pitching. So it's a good way to do it. They don't go the uber expensive route and go all in on a long-term contract for a huge name pitcher, but they're getting some value and having to shell out a little bit of money for a guy that's pretty solid. He's going to eat some innings. He's going to be good for you. And if he duplicates or even comes close to duplicating what he did last year with the Dodgers, it's going to be a good contract. Up next on our list, Chris Bassett to the Blue Jays. Very similar situation to Tyler Anderson, where he's coming off of a really solid year, going to a team that's looking to improve in the rotation after some underwhelming performances for the Blue Jays, right? They go to the postseason, they play the Mariners, they host them for the wild card round, and they don't win. So they want to upgrade in the rotation. Jose Abreu had a pretty bad year for them last year, all things considered. Youngjin Ryu, pretty good. You know, gotta stay on the mound. You say Kikuchi, a lot of guys that are just middle of the pack. Bassett has the upside to be a guy that's high impact. On the flip side, he's had some down years. He showed up in the postseason last year. Granted, it was only one start and didn't really pitch that well. So Bassett going to the Blue Jays, 3 years, $63 million, $21 million a year. That's a lot of money for a guy, if I'm looking right, is almost 34 years old, coming off of an okay season. I mean, 180 innings, 3.4 ERA, let's see, 167 strikeouts. 21 million a year? That's too much, in my opinion. This guy's a 15 to 18 type guy. And it's also, I'm going 2 years on a guy like Bassett. I can understand 3, and I think he's going to be solid. But the Rogers Center in Toronto is relatively hitter friendly. It's a really, really tough division in the American League East. He will contribute, but I'm giving Chris Bassett to the Blue Jays a B-. I don't really love this deal, and I've never just really loved Chris Bassett. It's nothing against Chris Bassett. I just, I don't know. It's a B- for me. Up next is Cody Bellinger leaving the Dodgers, going to the Cubs in Chicago. Now, Bellinger to the Cubs. You're thinking, maybe at least what went through my head, why? What's the point? What are we doing? But it's a 1-year deal for 17 million bucks. So there's not much for the Cubs to lose in this circumstance. It's not a long-term contract. And on the flip side, for Bellinger, he's got everything to lose in this situation because he's coming off of an absolutely brutal season. Absolutely brutal. If I look over here correctly at his stats, he finished the year with a 210 batting average, 654 OPS. Woof. That's the best word I can use to describe that season. Absolute woof. So for the Cubs and this deal, and it's mostly a team sort of rating system that we're doing here, they don't have much to lose. It's not a long-term commitment. And if Bellinger comes in this year and tears it up, okay, then maybe they explore, longer term options or an extension or things like that. But for the time being, the Cubs are trying to improve with a couple other guys here that we'll touch on shortly. And Bellinger has high upside. I mean, we've seen him play at an MVP caliber level. So overall, because Bellinger's coming off of a pretty tough year, but there's not much to lose for the Giants, or excuse me, the Cubs, I'm going to give this a B+. I think it's a B+ move for the Chicago Cubs and Cody Bellinger. Up next on the list is Andrew Benintendi to the Chicago White Sox. Okay, this move to me kind of caught me by surprise just because I didn't know the White Sox were really in on a guy like Benintendi. That being said, Benintendi fits in their lineup pretty well. He's coming off a year where he hit over 300. He's going to, make contact, low strikeout kind of guy. He's going to put the ball in play, but he's not going to drastically shift the outcome of the score on a consistent basis. He's not going to slug very much. He's not going to hit a ton of homers, although he has in the past. It's not really going to happen for Benintendi, right? But he's 28 years old. If I'm looking correctly, at 5 years, 75 million, okay? 15 million a year is not that much. It, again, kind of in the same area as Tyler Anderson, and I want to clarify, $15 million is an unbelievable amount of money, but for these guys, it's not that much. So I like the commitment here. 5 years at the age of 28. If it ends up being a complete bust or his career takes a complete nosedive, it's not going to hurt them that bad. It's not going to be a huge hit on the books. It's a contract that they could potentially move if he, is on a team like the White Sox and maybe they aren't playing very well towards the 3rd, 4th, 5th year of his contract. They want to get rid of him for a potential slight salary dump. It's really just like not that much of a hassle for somebody to take on if he is playing well, but the rest of the team isn't. On the flip side, if the team's playing well or everything's going wrong, whatever, and Benintendi's not playing well, then that's fine. 15 million a year. I don't want to say it's nothing in that situation. It is a lot. But in today's day and age, teams can kind of eat that. And let's be honest, the type of player that Andrew Benintendi is, he's not going to go out and just just lay an egg. He's going to go out and he's going to put the ball in play, probably hit, realistically, 280, 290, somewhere in there, which is fine. Last year, he didn't hit it for a ton of pop, and he has been hurt through some stints of his career. So if he can stay healthy, if he can contribute, he will earn whatever his worth is in this contract. So I'm going to take Benintendi on the White Sox. I'm going to put him also in the B+ category. I think it's a good move for the Chicago White Sox. I think it's a good move for Benintendi. It's a win-win for both of them. Up next is Xander Bogarts to the Padres, right? Bogarts comes to San Diego. 11-year deal, $280 million. Wow, that's a lot of money. Wow, that's a long time. Wow, that's a big commitment, etc., etc., etc. I am a Padres fan, and I'm going to come at this as unbiasedly as I possibly can. Okay, Xander Bogarts is a very good player, very good, top 5 shortstop in the league when he's at his best, maybe better, who knows. The concerns for me are not the same concerns that a casual might have, or somebody who doesn't know the team very well, or has this straightforward, old-fashioned sort of thinking. Well, they already got a shortstop in Ha-Seong Kim and Fernando Tatis Jr. I don't care about that. I don't care. What I do care about is having good players on my team to win baseball games, and he makes our team a lot better. A lot better. The other thing that a lot of people aren't talking about with this Bogarts contract is that it's a potential insurance policy for a situation where Manny Machado could opt out after the 2023 season. Reports are that he's going to opt out, and that may just be to get a bigger average annual value in the next contract that he signs with the Padres, and he wants to stay. I'm sure a lot of what happens with Machado and the Padres will be determined on the success of the team in this upcoming 2023 season. That being said, Bogarts to the Padres. He plays shortstop. It sounds like he's going to play shortstop, and that would move Ha-Seong Kim from shortstop over to second base. That I'm completely fine with. Now, when Tatis comes back, that's going to put him probably somewhere in the outfield. Again, I'm fine with it. Ideally, you put Tatis in a position where he can use his athleticism and his arm and contribute on defense. But at this point, I don't give a shit where Tatis plays. Just put him on the damn field at some point, because the guy just doesn't play baseball. Bogarts, 11 years, the average annual $25 million. It doesn't really hurt me that much. And by the way, it would have hurt me a lot more if I was a Padres fan looking at this in 2018, 2017, because at that time, as many people know, the Padres weren't these huge spenders and weren't super relevant in the free agency market. Now, Peter Seidler, the owner of the Padres, is just shitting money out of his rear end. So the money part of it's not a huge deal. The part that we may run into issues with is the latter parts of this contract. And I know we're not paying for his 38, 39, 40, 40-year-old seasons. We're paying for the first 5, 6, 7 years of his contract. So because it's not a win-win-win-win-win, I'm going to go A-, but I think it's a great deal. I think Xander Bogarts to the Padres is an A- with all things considered, and his contributions and how much better it makes the Padres, considering where they are as a team moving forward, hoping to contend, not just for the NL West, but for a World Series. All right, up next, Michael Brantley to the Astros, 1 year, $12 million. I love this deal for both sides. I absolutely love this deal. This deal will be my first A+, and here's why, okay? Brantley going back to the Astros makes a ton of sense for them as a team. $12 million is, again, a drop in the bucket for most of these teams. It's absolutely nothing. And the Astros like him. He likes them. And every time he's played for them, looking at his stats over here, he's an OPS plus guy last year. OPS plus a 125, 119 the year before, 127 the year before, 126. The guy lives around a 120, 125 OPS plus. The only thing that's an issue with him, which is what he ran into last year, he ran into it earlier parts of his career in Cleveland, is staying on the field. In fact, even last year with the Astros, he played 121. When I say last year, I'm talking 2021. In 2021, he played 121 games. Last year in 2022, he played 64 games. That's not enough. But there's no downside for the Astros. $12 million is nothing. And if he plays to his full potential, even if he plays 120 games, it is well worth the contract that he's going to sign, because you know he's going to live in the batting average column somewhere around 280, 295. At his best, he's been well over 300. In 2019, man, the guy hit 22 homers. He just strokes it across the yard. He hits balls all over the field. He's a great situational contact contributor, producer, player, hitter, guy, teammate. I love this deal for the Astros. I love it for Brantley too, because he does deserve to get some recognition and some pay. He does also have to stay on the field to get that bigger money, and that, you know, that's just part of it. But either way, Brantley to the Astros is an A+ for me, no doubt in my mind, with no downside for the Astros, all kinds of upside for them as a team, and Brantley gets the money, so it's an A+. Up next, Wilson Contreras to the Cardinals. Okay, 5 years, $87 million. That's about $17 million a year for a guy who is essentially coming in to replace Yadier Molina with the Cardinals. I like Wilson Contreras. He has his downfalls in a few different areas, right? His plate discipline's not ideal. His defense at the catching position is not ideal. There's potential, I'm assuming, with Yadi potentially sticking around in St. Louis to help him as a defensive catcher, because at the end of the day, Wilson Contreras, he just can't play defense. He can't frame. His throwing out of guys is probably his only positive attribute as a catcher defensively, but he can hit, and you can't find guys that can play catcher and hit the ball on a consistent basis. Last year he hit over 20 homers. The year before, you know, he hit over 20 homers. He's going to contribute, he's going to produce, and he's getting older, he's maturing a little bit. You know, he's got a lot in front of him. He's only 30 years old, but 5 years is kind of a lot for a catcher. 17 million a year is not bad. The Cardinals are probably going to turn him into a superstar defensive player, but I like the contract for him. I like it for the Cardinals. So Wilson Contreras to the Cardinals is an A-. Next on the list, Jacob DeGrom to the Texas Rangers. 5 years, $185 million. That's $37 million a year for a 5-year contract for a guy who's 34 years old. And let's look at total games started every season since 2020. So 2020, he obviously had 12 games, but they played a shortened season. 2021, he had 15 games started. Last year in 2022, 11 games started. When he plays, when he's healthy, he is the best pitcher in the sport. That being said, this is too much money and too long of a contract for a guy who just has not stayed healthy in this latter part of his career. DeGrom to the Rangers. I like the concept. I like the idea. I like DeGrom going to Texas. I think it's where he's from, and if it's not, he wanted out of New York no matter what. He put no farewell message to the New York Mets when he left. He wanted no part of that organization anymore, and he gets out of there and gets his bag. But for the Rangers, this is a bad deal. This is a bad deal. $37 million a year. And if he goes out next year and he has another 12 start season, or let's say he finishes out the 5-year contract he has, first of all, he'll be 39. And let's say in those 5 years, he averages, what I think will happen is 11 to 15, 16 starts a year. That's an average, right? He may have 1 year where he has 9 starts and 1 year where he has 22 or whatever. But if he doesn't average anywhere north of 23 to 25 starts, at least a year, at least, then this contract is a massive overpay. And I don't think that's going to happen. So DeGrom to the Rangers, because of the length, because of the annual average value, this is a D. Okay, Jacob DeGrom to the Rangers is a D on this scale, and there's no doubt about it. No doubt in my mind. Up next on the list, Edwin Diaz back to the Mets. 5 years, just north of 100 million, basically 20 million bucks a year for a guy who is 28 years old. He's a top 3 bullpen arm in the sport. He throws 100 miles an hour. He's got Timmy trumpets. He's got the hype train. He's in New York on the Mets, who need and would like to have a solidified closer. They had him last year. He was completely and utterly dominating in all aspects. He found his groove. He's throwing 100. He's throwing sliders. Crowd's blowing the trumpets with him. My only knock on this deal is that 5 years is a really long time for a bullpen pitcher. It's a really long time, but Edwin Diaz has proven that he's been really, really solid. He's contributed a lot to them. He had a ton of appearances last year and he looked great. So just because of the longevity thing I'm not a guy who loves giving long-term contracts to bullpen pitchers. That would have this deal, Edwin Diaz to the Mets, falls in the A- category. It's still a very good deal. Both sides of the party, both sides of the deal. Edwin Diaz is very happy getting, obviously, 20 million a year, and the Mets are happy getting a top 3 bullpen arm in the sport. And the $20 million a year for them clearly means nothing. So good for the Mets, good for Diaz. A little too long for me, but it's an A-. Up next on the list, Mitch Haniger to the San Francisco Giants. 3 years, 43 million bucks, 14 million a year for a guy who can't really stay on the field. Right? Last year he played 57 games. 2019 he played 63 games. 2020 he didn't play at all. When he's on the field and he's playing, his ceiling is what he did in 2021. He hit 39 homers, he hit 100 RBIs, and that is very impressive, very solid, and he can contribute. 3 years is the perfect length for a guy like this because he has the high ceiling, but he also has the very low floor of the injuries that he's dealt with. 14 million a year is not much for me. It's not bad. And the only thing is, I think if he gets hurt, it's just going to be a waste of money. That being said, I think this is a good deal for both sides. I think it's a really good deal. I just think he hasn't really proven the worth that he's at yet. So it's not bad. It's not good. 14 million a year is a good amount. I think Mitch Haniger to the Giants is a B+ deal. It's not bad. It's not good. It's right in the middle, and it'll probably end up being fine. And if, hey, it blows up and he blows up in a good way, I should say, and Haniger takes off, great for the Giants. They're going to be getting an absolute steal, but it's unlikely with him going to San Francisco. It's a graveyard for hitters. It's going to be tough. Up next is Aaron Judge to the New York Yankees. Captain Aaron Judge, by the way, excuse me. Aaron Judge is the captain of the Yankees. He re-signs with the Yankees, 9 years, 360 million bucks, 40 million a year. Whoa, that's a lot of money. Oh, no, it's not, because Aaron Judge is an absolutely ridiculous baseball player. He had 62 homers last year. His wins above replacement, I want you guys to understand this. If your WAR is somewhere in the 4s or 5s, it's pretty good. It's really good. He had a 10.6 WAR last year. He's a Gold Glove caliber defender. He hits for average, he hits for power, he's got a great arm. I mean, the only thing that I guess he doesn't have is the speed, but he's 6'90", and he's the size of the refrigerator in my kitchen. So Aaron Judge to the Yankees, he gets his bag. The Yankees get their franchise altering player, and it's a win-win for both sides. Judge to the Yankees, A+ deal. A+, no doubt in my mind. It's a great contract for both sides, and everybody's got to be happy. Yankees fans are happy. Judge is happy. The Yankees are happy. It's just a great deal. It's a great deal all the way around. Now, I know we're going alphabetical here, but because of the two different Turners, Justin and Trey, they're going by first name, and in this case, we're going to go with Justin Turner. So Justin goes to the Red Sox, 2 years, $21 million, just under $11 million a year. It's kind of a whatever deal to me. What's interesting is that they sign a guy like Justin Turner, but they don't even consider, I mean, I don't know what the offers were for Bogarts, but if it's me, like, I'm saving that 10 million and I'm not signing anybody, because if we don't get Bogarts, then we shouldn't get anybody. And we should be either saving all that up for Devers, or we should have put it into Bogarts. I don't really know what the Red Sox are doing. This deal to me, because he's 38 years old, Justin Turner, I mean, you know, like, he's gonna go to the Red Sox and like hit 270 and then like hit 20 homers. I don't know, like, it's not like a bad deal. It's not like 10 million bucks a year is gonna bankrupt the Boston Red Sox. I don't really see the point of it. So I'm actually going to throw Justin Turner to the Red Sox in the Y category, for the reasons of Bogarts should have been their priority. They shouldn't even be targeting anybody else. And because they are going after a guy like JD Martinez, or a guy like Justin Turner, I should say, it doesn't really make sense to me. And then the Red Sox go out and sign Masataka Yoshida from Japan. I'm not feeling whatever the Red Sox are giving off right now. They gave up Mookie Betts for a bag of balls. They gave up on Xander Bogarts, and it sounds like, oh, they're prioritizing signing Rafael Devers. They don't re-sign JD Martinez. Like, the Red Sox are just weird right now, and they're kind of crying like poor me, like in the sense of like poor meaning we don't have money, when I know everybody knows that's not true. So they get Justin Turner, but it doesn't do anything, and it just doesn't make sense. So that's why I put him in Y. Up next, JD Martinez to the LA Dodgers, 1 year, $10 million bucks. Okay, as much as it pains me to say this about the Dodgers, I think this is an absolutely phenomenal contract. Okay, 1 year deals to me are great. They're absolutely fantastic. And unfortunately for JD Martinez, looking at his stats last year, he didn't have an outstanding season. In fact, it was one of his worst seasons in the last 5. I don't know if he was dealing with any nagging injuries or what was going on with JD. But when he's at his best, looking back in 2018, a 43 homer, 130 RBI guy on a World Series championship team. He's going to DH. He can play the outfield when he needs to, kind of in a pinch, right? But he's kind of old. That's like my only knock on this, is he's 35, but he like plays and acts like he's a little bit older than that. I don't know what's going on. I don't think he's, you know, completely done with his career or anything, but the 1 year deals are great for the Dodgers because there's not a ton of risk, and 10 million bucks to the Dodgers is a drop in the bucket. There's a high probability that JD Martinez goes over there and hits 28 to 35 homers, somewhere in that range in 2023, in which case this would be a phenomenal deal for the Dodgers. JD gets his money. I think JD kind of got hosed in this deal, to be honest. I think he should have got, I mean, if Bellinger's getting 17 million, JD should be getting, I don't know, at least 12, 15. Either way, this is an A- deal. There's a little bit of downside for the Dodgers, not a ton, because he is coming off of a sort of a down year. So I'm going to go JD Martinez to the Dodgers is an A- deal. Up next, another player on the New York Mets, or in New York in general. I feel like half these guys are in New York in some capacity. Brandon Nimmo back to the Mets, 8 years, 162 million, 20 million bucks a year. 29 years old. The guy flies around the field. He plays great defense in center field and has, by the way, drastically improved. Last year, he had a really, really good defensive year, despite years before when he wasn't playing great defense, believe it or not, as well as he can run in the outfield. But if you look at his numbers last year, man, I mean, anybody coming in, 274 batting average, 367 on base. The guy stole, I guess, only 3 bags, but he comes across as a very stereotypical table-setting leadoff hitter, and that's what he was for the Mets last year. He had a 5.1 WAR, which is, again, very, very, very good. This contract may come back to bite the Mets a little bit. Okay, I don't think Nimmo's a bad player. I think he's a really good player. But $20 million a year for Brandon Nimmo is a lot of money. That is a lot of money. I know he's younger. I know that's also, you know, a reason why they'd be committing that much money to a guy at that age. But he's, you know, 8 years to a guy whose game is speed and athleticism, and that will certainly be diminishing towards the latter half of his career, and that's going to be the last 3 years of this contract. That being said, I like him. I like Nimmo to the Mets. Just a lot of money and a little bit too long of a contract for me. I know the Mets and the money thing. I know, I get it. I understand it's a nothing burger to them, but Nimmo to the Mets, it's a B-. It's a B- deal because it's too big for a guy who's honestly, in my opinion, not great. Up next is Anthony Rizzo to the Yankees. 2 years, $40 million. That's $20 million bucks a year. Again, the money isn't really a factor, and I'd be a guy that's more inclined to give up a little bit more money if the contract agreement is a little bit shorter. Okay, Rizzo is 33, so a 2-year deal puts him at 35. That's fine. The guy hit over 30 homers. That's his ceiling. He plays at Yankee Stadium. You know you're going to get his left-handed pull side pop at Yankee Stadium. It's always going to play. And I think the guy scraps in general, right? I think last year he hit 224, but he comes out with a 338 on base, 817 OPS. You get north of 800 in the OPS category, fine by me. $20 million a year for just north of 800 OPS seems like a lot, but for the Yankees, it's nothing. The Yankees love Rizzo. Rizzo loves New York. I was hoping the Padres would get this guy, but I like this deal overall. I really have nothing bad to say about it. I think Rizzo is a perfect fit for Yankee Stadium. And I think $20 million a year, the guy deserves it. So I'm going to go Rizzo to the Yankees. That is another A+ deal. A+ all the way around. Love it for the Yanks. Love it for Riz. Next on the list, another guy from, or going to, you guessed it, New York. Carlos Rodon, or Rodon. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce his last name, but it's Rodon, and you know who I'm talking about. 6 years, 162 million, 27 million a year for a guy who's 30 years old. Okay, 6 years for a starting pitcher is a lot. It's a lot of time to commit to a guy, but he's 30. 27 million a year is a ton of money. That's 3 million a year less than Garrett Cole. And Garrett Cole is way better than Carlos Rodon. That being said, Rodon's had 2 years, back-to-back years of sub-3 ERAs. Last year, he had an absolutely ridiculous year. He had like 180 innings and 237 strikeouts or something crazy. So for Rodon to go to the Yankees, it's great for him. He's getting his 27 million a year. That is a bag. The thing is, I think he's exceeded and gone over his actual expectations, or I guess his ceiling has been reached in that sense. I think he's going to come back down to earth a little bit more. Yankee Stadium is a tough place to pitch. AL East is a tough place to pitch. I think the contract is okay. I don't think it's ideal, but I don't mind it, if that makes any sense. So Rodon to the Yankees, all things considered, I'm going to go with a B+ contract. Next on the list, one of my dudes, one of my guys, Robert Suarez and the Padres. 5 years, $46 million. Okay, he's 31. He came over from somewhere in Asia. I think it was Korea, may have been Japan. I think it was actually Japan. Nevertheless, comes over last year. Nobody really knows who the guy is. What did he look like? I heard he throws pretty hard. Yeah, he throws bullets. And he's really good. Robert Suarez last year came into the games for the Padres in the postseason, and he just carved. I mean, he just carved. 45 appearances for the Padres, 2.27 ERA, 47 innings, 61 punch-outs, 166 ERA plus. He's making $9 million a year next year, 2024 and 2025. Then there's a player opt-out if he wants to go somewhere else. If he keeps it up, if he keeps it up and he comes in, it doesn't even have to be at a 2.2 ERA for the next 3. If he comes in 2.9 next year and 2.95 the year after that, or 3.1 the year after that, like if in the next 3 years, if his average ERA is anywhere in around 3 and he pitches in 45 to 50 plus games a year, dude, he's gonna get a bag. He will be a little bit older, and the 5-year contract for a reliever to me is, I mentioned it earlier in the video, it's a lot, right? Edwin Diaz got 5 years, but Edwin Diaz got 5 years, $100 million. Robert Suarez got more than half of that, or maybe I should say less than half of that, $46 million for 5 years. I think this is a bargain. I think this was a steal. I think Suarez is getting his bag and showing up in the big leagues and getting some money. I think he's kind of getting maybe shafted a little bit, but Suarez also has only played 1 good year. So that's the other thing that's working against him. I think this deal, because again, if Suarez dominates and has the opportunity to opt out in 3 years, he'll do it. And the Padres will have gotten 3 years of a dominant pitcher. Robert Suarez to the Padres is an A+ deal. A++, A++, A++. I can't emphasize that enough. A++. All right, up next is Dansby Swanson to the Cubs. 7 years, $177 million, $25 million a year. The guy had a 5 WAR last year. The Cubs are apparently trying to compete at a little bit of a higher level. We mentioned Cody Bellinger. We mentioned, or I guess we're going to mention, some free agency pitching acquisitions they're going to be making. But with Swanson playing shortstop in Chicago, the only thing for me is that the Cubs, they seem to kind of be in that middle tier area where it's like they're picking up free agents. Are they doing it just because they want the fans to be happy and they're still a pretty larger market team who can afford to do it? They don't want to look like they're completely rebuilding, but you know, they lose out on Wilson Contreras. They should have traded Contreras last year at the trade deadline, and they didn't because they would have got a ton of value out of it. Doesn't matter. The Cubs are just a little bit confusing to me because they could have done that and then started this whole kind of rebuild thing, or they should have re-signed him. I don't know. It's weird that they just completely just nullified everything about Wilson Contreras, and then they go after Dansby with this huge deal. Nevertheless, I don't think it's a bad deal. I think Dansby is a good player. $25 million a year for Dansby. I think it's slightly an overpay, just slightly. The market this year has been absolutely bananas, right? We talked about Bogarts, $28 million a year. Correa is only getting $26 million a year. And another guy we'll touch on here is getting $26 to $28 million a year. So for Dansby to get $25 million a year when his offensive numbers aren't quite the same as the rest of those guys, I think it's a bit of an overpay, and I think it's just a little bit weird in general that the Cubs are going for that contract. But I don't think it's the worst thing ever. It's just really kind of confusing for me. So with that being said, I'm going to go Dansby to the Cubs as a C+ move. It's a C+ move. Doesn't really make much sense to me. And it's just kind of awkward. I think it's the best word I can think of when I think of that deal. Up next, he makes the list because he's a big name and he's going to a big team. Syndergaard is going to the Dodgers, 1 year, $13 million. I don't have a huge issue with this. $13 million is not that much money, so it doesn't really matter. But Syndergaard is not the same guy, doesn't throw as hard anymore. You know, what is he going to do for them? I don't know. Is he going to contribute a ton? Probably not. $13 million is not that bad. But in all honesty, it may end up being a $13 million contract that they just have to fork out because he makes 9 starts. I got Syndergaard to the Dodgers as a C+ deal. Jameson Taillon is up next. He also goes to the Cubs, 4 years, $68 million, $17 million a year. He's a pretty solid number 3 starter in the big leagues. And so to pay $17 million a year for him, it's probably going to force him up the rotation and raise his level of contribution. He's going to probably slide up to something like a 2 starter. That's fine. 17 million a year, I guess, for the Cubs. The thing with the Cubs is they have been lacking pitching recently. So with the Swanson move, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But with this Taillon move, it makes a little bit more sense because they're not shelling out just gobs and gobs of money, but they're also getting a really solid contributing, innings eating, producing middle of the rotation arm, and they needed it. So I think overall, Taillon to the Cubs, I'm going to slot this in as a B+ move because it is a little bit confusing in general what the Cubs are doing, but I think Taillon to the Cubs, it makes sense. Down to our last two here. Trea Turner is up next. He goes to the Phillies, 11 years, 300 million, 27 big ones a year for Trea Turner, who, in my opinion, when he plays at his best, is a top 3 shortstop in the sport that we know as baseball. This move for the Phillies makes perfect sense. They have Bryson Stott playing shortstop for him. And as a Padres fan, right, I'm watching the Phillies play against us in the NLCS. And I didn't think at any point like, oh, these guys need Trea Turner. I'm just saying they had Bryson Stott playing shortstop, a rookie, sort of inexperienced, hitting towards the bottom of the lineup. They had Jean Segura at second base. I don't know the story. I think Jean Segura is a free agent in some capacity because as soon as they announced Trea Turner to the Phillies, Bryson Stott, and everybody's like, oh, well, Bryson Stott's going to just slide to second. So I don't know where Jean Segura went. It doesn't really matter because would I rather have Trea Turner and Bryson Stott or Bryson Stott and Jean Segura? Trea Turner and Bryson Stott. Both have excellent defensive gloves. Both can run. Both can hit. By the way, not PNC, Citizens Bank in Philadelphia is so hitter friendly. It is absolutely ridiculous. Trea Turner is going to hit close to, if not 30 homers. I promise you he will hit close to or over 30 homers in Philadelphia. 27 million a year for this guy. He's 29 years old. Yeah, 11 years, he's going to be 40. And this deal, may not be panning out towards the back end of it. That doesn't matter because the Phillies are right on the cusp of, again, making another incredibly long and deep push into the postseason. And they pick up a top 3 shortstop in the league. They pay $27 million a year for him. Trea gets his bag. Trea Turner to the Phillies, A+ deal all the way around. Last but not least, Justin Verlander to the Mets, 2 years, $86 million, $43 million a year. He's 39 years old, about to be 40, coming off of a Cy Young season. A lot of question marks about Verlander in the last couple of years. His health, his injuries, is he going to be able to contribute at the same level? Is he going to be anywhere near where he used to be at the literally MVP caliber pitcher? Clearly last year he was. They had like a 170 RA. He had an unbelievable year. He won the Cy Young. The only thing, again, is the age, right? He's 40. He's going to be 40 years old when this season is underway at some point. That doesn't really seem to matter because just last year he was 39 and he had an unbelievable year. It's a 2-year deal. I think you can't just give him a 1-year deal. I think he wanted 2 years. $43 million a year. That's a ton of money. Okay. It's a little bit too much. In my opinion, it's slightly too much of a risk just with the age, but I don't think it's a bad contract. I don't. And I love Justin Verlander. Love him. And I think he's a gangster. I think he's a baller. I think he shows up. He's a bulldog. Like all the adjectives, the positive adjectives you want to use to describe him. And the Mets are obviously just throwing around monopoly money for fun. So the money part of it's really not that big of a deal. He's a little bit just a touch a little too old for me. Otherwise, this would be an A+, but this is an A- deal. Verlander to the Mets, A-. So thanks for watching, guys. Let's go through here again from bottom to top. Turner to the Red Sox. Why would they do that? DeGrom to the Rangers. Brutal contract. Dansby to the Cubs. Syndergaard to the Dodgers. Okay, just not really that much. Bassett to the Blue Jays. Nimmo to the Mets. Oh, I can deal with it. Tyler Anderson to the Angels. Bellinger to the Cubs, Benintendy to the White Sox, Haniger to the Giants, Rodon to the Yankees, Taillon to the Cubs. All those deals make sense. It's just sort of heading into, or it just has smaller amounts of downside in some areas, whether it's the team or the player or the financial commitment or whatever the case is. Abreu to the Astros, Bogarts to the Padres, Contreras to the Cardinals, Edwin Diaz to the Mets, JD to the Dodgers, and Verlander to the Mets. Those are all very good contracts all the way around. There's some parts of these deals that just give me slight hesitation, but all those guys are really solid contributors and deserve to get the money that they're getting. That's the only hiccup for me. And then the top of contracts, Brantley to the Astros, Correa to the Mets, Judge back to the Yankees, Rizzo back to the Yankees, Robert Suarez to the Padres, and Trey Turner to the Phillies. All those deals to me have such minimal downside, such high upside, and are, you know, team friendly in some capacity, or at least just worth the investment. And I love all those contracts, of all the top contracts that have been offered and handed out and signed in free agency this offseason. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. A little bit lengthier, but we wanted to just dive into all of the different free agent signings. I know we left some guys out, right? If I want to look through this list here, right, we left out, I don't know, Carlos Santana is a pretty big name. Christian Vasquez, Taijuan Walker, Tommy Kahnle, right? We didn't put Kershaw on there, but I don't, like, he's just, whatever. We left out Kenley to the Red Sox. Okay. You know, Drury signs with the Angels. That one doesn't move the needle for me. Clevenger to the White Sox. The Padres get Matt Carpenter. The Guardians get Josh Bell. Tucker Barnhart signs today with the Cubs. You know, there's some of those guys. They're all really, really solid contributors to big league teams. They just didn't quite make the list for me, at least in the top 24. So, you know, all those moves to me, I don't think I'd put all of them like that means they're all Fs. It just means the names themselves, or at least the huge financial commitments, weren't enough to make the top of the biggest news breaking or needle moving contracts. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I appreciate you guys watching. Be sure to slap a like on it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Let me know in the comments where you think I got some of these wrong, because I'm curious. You know, some of these fans are like, oh, I'm a Blue Jay, I don't care how much we gave Chris Bassett, we got better, let's go. And it's like, okay, you know, like, I love it. Okay, like, you know, it's not bad, it's just I think it's a B-, right? That kind of thing. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to check out my channel for more videos like this, sports hot takes, debates, anything you're looking for. I've got it in some capacity on the Phenomenal Fan channel. So thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate the support, and we'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace out.